Hello everyone, and in this video we're going to start talking about the keywords that we've been speaking about so much. We've been talking and saying that, there are all these words that are really important to know that indicate structure in the Gemara, and in this video we're going to start looking at what some of those words are, and specifically we're going to look at 3 question words. Words that when you see them, a light bulb should go off in your head. Alright, here's a question. The Gemara is now asking a question, and then what's special about these is they indicate different types of questions. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. The first one that we're going to look at is Meisvei. And Meisvei means a challenge. Okay, and when you see Meisvei, you should say Meisvei means that there's a challenge being said. And what does that mean by a challenge? A challenge is, let's say for example, Abaye has said something. Alright? Abaye says something. So here's Abaye and he says something. So Meisvei is a question from a more authoritative source. From a more authoritative source. So for example, a Mishnah. Mishnah is more authoritative. So the Mishnah comes along and the Mishnah contradicts what Abaye says, and that's a Meisvei. Okay, it's a challenge to Abaye from a more primary source. This is more primary. Okay, and then you could also have the same thing if you have a pasuk. You have a pasuk that is challenging a Mishnah. So Meisvei is always a question from a more primary source, and because it's from a more primary source, a more authoritative source, it's a question that must be answered. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if Abaye doesn't answer this question, what Abaye said will basically be thrown out the door, because Abaye said one thing, we have a straight up Mishnah or a pasuk against him. Unless Abaye can answer that question, then we're basically going to discard Abaye's statement that he made. Okay, so it's critical whenever you see a Meisvei asked or an Eisvei. Sometimes this will be Eisvei, which just means that he challenged him. So Meisvei is more anonymous. The Gemara just says Meisvei and asks its question, or you could say Eisvei Rava le'Abaye. Rava challenged Abaye, and then it comes and brings Rava quotes his more primary source. Okay, so that's the first one is Meisvei, very important word. Alright, let's scroll down, we'll go into the next one. The next one we're going to do is Uraminhu. Okay, and Uraminhu, which is to pit against. To pit against, or to smash together, or to throw. Okay, and this you also see sometimes rummy. These could have other variations, but these are common ones that come up. So Uraminu, they pit against. And what does this mean? This is a question or a contradiction is brought to light between two sources of an equivalent level. So, for example, you have Mishnah A, and you have Mishnah B. Okay? Mishnah A, Mishnah B. And Mishnah A contradicts Mishnah B, and Mishnah B contradicts Mishnah A. So, and that's what Urminu is. You're pitting these two sources together, against each other. And this is different than Meisvei. Meisvei is a more primary source. Uraminhu, or Rami, is two sources on equivalent standing. So 2 psukim, 2 verses, 2 mishnahs, 2 brises, 2 toseftas, 2 Amoraic statements, etc., etc. So that's Uraminhu, and an example would be okay. An example would be Rami, or Abaye Rami Ksiv. Ksiv ... Ksiv ... Okay, and basically Abaye is smashing together or comparing, verse A and verse B, and then we'll come out with some answer of how they're not a question. Okay, so this is an example of Abaye Rami Ksiv, and it could also be Uraminhu, more generic and anonymous. Okay, and so Uraminhu is 2 equivalent sources. And the last key word that I want to discuss is maskif. Right? Maskif. Maskif is also a challenge. In fact, these are all really like challenge. The words Rami means to pit, but Meisvei and Maskif very similar to challenge. And with key words, these traffic sign words, sometimes they're called, it's less important the exact literal translation, and it's much, much more important to understand the meaning and what is the word indicating about the Gemara, because these words are telling you something about the structure and the layout of the Gemara and what to expect. So Maskif is a challenge, but it's a challenge from an Amora. It's an Amora challenging something, so you could have you could say like so. Okay, we'll stick with Abaye here. So Abaye says X. Okay, and Rava comes along, and Rava asks a question on what Abaye said. Okay, Abaye, you said X, but maybe it doesn't mean X, maybe it means Y, and not X. Or, how can you use your source for that? We need that source from somewhere else. Or, Rava could ask, how do you know you're right? Maybe that's talking about something different. Okay, so Rava is asking on something that Abaye said. It doesn't have to be an Amora, it could be a Brisa. It could be Maskif lo Rav Papa. Rav Papa is asking a question on a Brisa. Is it talking about the beginning of the Brisa or the end of the Brisa? What is this Brisa saying? So Maskif is just trying to understand what Abaye said in light of other information or a question about it, etc. So Rava is asking a question on what Abaye said. And this is more of a straight-up question, whereas Meisvei and Uraminhu indicate specific things. Okay? So we said, just a quick recap, Meisvei is a question, a challenge from a more authoritative source. Uraminhu is from an equal source. And Maskif is an Amora asking a question. Of the 3 of these questions, Meisvei is the absolute strongest question. Okay? So these are some of the words. When you see these 3 words, you should know, sirens should go off in your head. Question, question, question is coming. I have to now try and figure out what the question is that the Gemara is asking. Okay? And so in the next few videos, we'll try and introduce a lot of key words, these key, structural words. However, there's no list or set, all right, know these words and you'll know everything. So I can't just give you a set list of words. I am trying to work on one, but it's not so easy because they come up in so many different forms. However, any word that I give you will be a word that is really critical to know. I'll try not to give the ones that, the forms that don't come up as often. These ones I'm giving you because they come up all the time with standard meanings and things, and are very important. So Meisvei, Uraminhu, and Maskif. 3 really important words that all indicate questions of varying types and degrees. Alright, Hatzlacha Rabbah. See you in the next video.